That's right.
Is everyone?
Are we all here?
Kind of. I've got a job back. And then I'm going to run it. I'm doing the We don't know what you're lying for.
I hate it because I'm nervous for them. You may as well go or should we go for this tomorrow?
Yeah. Then you just run through a few more. I was like backtracking on my talk. What? I forgot that. It's really interesting. No, I never complimented. It's actually my sister's, but you've got 2 layers. What? Hello, everybody. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
So they will
Excuse me. Just to let you know. Yes. Is everyone ready? Yeah. Yes. Lovely. Oh, hello there. My name's Harriet, and I'm here to take you on a journey. My journey, which just so happens to be pretty similar to the journey of the French performance artist Sophie Calle. Has anyone heard of her work? Getting a few nods. Lovely. Well, in my opinion, she's a little bit crazy, but we'll go into that later. So, I heard about her work about a year ago. She started making work in about 1979 when she returned to Paris after a few years travelling. She wanted to reacquaint herself with the city. So this is a quote that really intrigued me about it. For months, I followed strangers on the street, for the pleasure of following them, not because they particularly interested me. I photographed them without their knowledge, took note of their movements, then finally lost sight of them and forgot them. So of an evening, Sophie Calle would return to her home and make up stories about these photographs of people, where they were going, what they were doing, and what their lives were like. So this project led into other projects, such as the hotel, which is when she travelled to Venice and was employed as a chambermaid. On Monday, February 16th, 1981, I was hired as a temporary chambermaid for 3 weeks in a Venetian hotel. I was assigned 12 bedrooms on the 4th floor. In the course of my cleaning duties, I examined the personal belongings of the hotel guests and observed through details lives which remained unknown to me. On Friday, March 6th, the job came to an end. As you'll notice, dates are really important in Sophie Calle's work, in this one and in the 2 pieces that I'm going to focus on later. This is because her work is kind of based on her own life, so she performs it through exhibitions and also books, as you see here. This is Exquisite Pain, and this is Suite Venetienne. These are 2 pieces that she performed, and these are the 2 pieces that I'm going to be focusing on today. This is because of my strange experience. So, last summer, I went on the Trans-Siberian Railway, which is something that Sophie Calle did in her piece, Exquisite Pain. She travelled on the Trans-Siberian Railway to a job in Japan, which she would have for 3 months. She was then to meet her lover in New Delhi, India. So, I did this journey last summer. You might not think that that's really particularly strange until I realised, as I've just told you, I was following in her footsteps. And on the Trans-Siberian, I wrote some letters to my boyfriend that I never sent. And there's a nugget of curiosity for you. So, Sophie Calle, Exquisite Pain. It's quite hard to explain. I'll go into that later. And Suite Venetienne, another piece that I'm going to be focusing on. When I returned from my travelling on the Trans-Siberian, I realised, hey, I'm shadowing Sophie Calle. And that, again, really intrigued me. So I thought, when I had the opportunity to visit Venice last November, I went, I'm going to go with intent to follow Sophie Calle as she did in Suite Venetienne. She met a man at a party in Paris who told her he was going to Venice the next day. So, obviously, sanely, she decided to follow him there. So the next day, she got on a train, went to Venice to try and follow the man who she calls Henry V and map his journey. So, with these 2 pieces, I'm going to pose the question, what does it mean to follow a strange artist who follows in the footsteps of strangers? Why don't you follow me? on the Trans-Siberian Railway. So you are in the compartment. You're all quite squidged in. Let me give you a little idea of the sizings of the compartments. So, this is being generous, if I'm honest. 1.5 metres wide, about 2 metres in length, on there for long periods of time. In her book, Exquisite Pain, there is actually a picture of the compartment. In my opinion, it looks a little bit comfier on this photograph than it was when I went. See, it's tiny. There's barely any space. And you've got the 2 beds at the bottom, the benches, which you saw in the photograph, and then the other 2 beds you're sharing with 3 other people, flip down. So when you stand up, you've got about the amount of space that I'm showing you right now to stand up. It's really very squashed. And I was there with my mom and my dad and random Russian man who just kind of came in every now and then, changed periodically, and occasionally was Mongolian when we were going through Mongolia, and Chinese when we were going through China, and it was very uncomfortable, slightly strange. Imagine having to spend 3 days, as you are now, occasionally sitting down. It wasn't particularly comfortable, let's say. So, Exquisite Pain. I'm going to focus on that for the moment and try and tell you a little bit about Sophie Cow's performance. It's quite hard to explain, but I'm going to give it a go. So, as I've already mentioned, Sophie Cow, she travelled on the Trans-Siberian Railway to get to a job in Japan, which she had for 3 months. She'd arranged with her lover to meet in New Delhi, India, at the end of her journey. This was all she could think about for the entire time that she was doing it, through her work and the time on the journey. All she could think about was seeing her lover in Japan. And this is a little bit about it in her own words. In 1984, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs granted me a grant for a 3-month scholarship to Japan. I left on October 25th, unsuspecting that this date would mark the beginning of a 92-day countdown to the end of a love affair. Nothing extraordinary, but to me, at the time, the unhappiest moment in my life, and one for which I blamed the trip itself. As you see from that, it didn't go exactly to plan. So he called her the day before they were to meet in New Delhi, just clarifying that it was happening. She thought she'd won. So she got on the plane to New Delhi. But when she got there, she received a telegraph from him saying that he was being hospitalised and couldn't come. Obviously, she was terrified. She thought he'd died, been in a serious accident. So she rushed to the hotel room that he booked for them. Room 261, the Imperial Hotel, New Delhi. It took her 10 hours to get through to him, when she realised that he'd actually found another woman. So, I blame the trip itself. I got back to France on January 28th, 1985. From that moment, whenever people asked me how it went, I chose to skip the Far East bit and tell them about my suffering instead. In return, I started asking both friends and chance encounters, when did you suffer most? I decided to continue such exchanges until I got over my pain by comparing it with others, or had worn it out by sheer repetition. So this book shows her journey. The first half is the trip through Far East on the Trans-Siberian Railway, mainly through photographs. But she doesn't focus on it. There are stamps, as you probably saw when I showed you the picture, 76 days to unhappiness. She's again focusing on the end of her journey. And the next half of the book is the stories that she collected from strangers and friends of their suffering and her own suffering. 99 days. It begins on day 5. 5 days ago, the man I love left me. He was a friend of my father's. I'd always had a thing for him. On our first night, I slipped into bed in a wedding dress. That just shows how crazy she is. Before that day, I'd applied for a 3-month study grant for Japan. The extract ends with, he picked up the phone and said, I wanted to come and explain a few things. I replied, have you met someone? Yes. I spent the rest of the night staring at the phone. I'd never been this unhappy before. It took her 99 days to get over it. And the collection of all of the stories of other people's suffering. The last extract, page 98, is so faint. The grey fades on the black pages until you can hardly read it. It says, 98 days ago, the man I loved, note the past tense, left me. Friday 25th, 1985, Room 261, Imperial Hotel, New Delhi. Enough. Page 99 is blank. So, Sophie Cal, she focused on the end of her journey, the pain she felt. Me, I'm going to focus on the journey itself, the Trans-Siberian Railway, and believe me, there was enough pain there. 19th of August 2012. Hi. We arrived safe and sound. I fell asleep on the way to the hotel with my mouth open. It was attractive. It's strange not sharing a room with my sister, but the minibar's free, so there's a plus. We're 3 hours ahead of you in Moscow at the moment, so I hope you're having a good day. We've got a day in Moscow tomorrow, and then onto the train. I'm really looking forward to it, although I did just clean my teeth with the aeroplane toothpaste, which was terrible. Right. 21st of August 2012. We've eventually found the train. We have to share the compartment with a Russian guy, which is mildly uncomfortable. The compartment's tiny. So, the Russian guy. I mentioned him before. First man, he was already on the train when we got on. And he left that night in a platform on a city called Omsk. The next morning we woke up and realised the video camera was missing. 15 minutes of searching through bags, turning through the bedding, getting all of our luggage out, being quite hysterical. I realised that I'd actually put it in the front pocket of my backpack the night before. I wish I'd remembered this earlier, rather than having my mum and dad screaming that the Russian man must have taken it in the middle of the night, and he could have killed us very easily, because a lot of people around us probably thought we were insane. Another Russian guy was on the 3-day stretch from Ekaterinburg to Lake Baikal. At one platform, the train stopped. It was a local train, so it stops off at the platform to let people on and off. And there were people selling things on the platform, so the Russian guy got off and came back with a really big dried fish. It was very strange and quite smelly, but my dad, for some reason, thought, oh, that's a great idea. What I'm going to do is go and buy a really big dried fish as well. So not only did we have the Russian man eating this dried fish in our compartment, we had my father doing so as well. But for the next 20 minutes, this Russian man was teaching my dad how to use a really big knife in how to eat this dried fish. And me and my mum were just sitting there like, what is going on? What did we agree to come on this holiday? Because it was all my dad's idea. And in hindsight, I should probably have paid more attention to the plans. At the moment, there's a train lady shouting at me in Russian and taking my pillow. I think she's going to make the new Russian's bed. My parents have gone to the restaurant car, the only other place to go on this train. Apart from the toilet, which is disgusting, there isn't a shower. I wish you were the 4th person in the compartment. 25th of August 2012. We're back on the train for 3 whole days to Lake Baikal. I've calculated the journey time, and later in the journey from the capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, to the capital of China, Beijing, it takes 1 night and 1 day. That's double the distance of the next 3 days' travel. The Trans-Siberian Express, this is not. When we got onto the train, there was obviously a Russian guy in our compartment. His things were everywhere, so Mum got a bit angsty and told him to move it all. I think he's okay, just a bit confused that a random English lady came on and started shouting at him. Now Mum's reading the guidebook to me. This holiday is tiring. I'm going to need another one to get over it. And it's cold. It's meant to be summer. Nobody's ever had to layer up. In hindsight, I should probably have paid more attention to my dad's plans. He loved it so much, he's going back again. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. He just got back on Sunday. He went in winter. He went to the ice sculptures in the north of China and then did the Trans-Siberian back again. He kept texting me saying it's minus 22 degrees and I was just there like, well, you're crazy, what are you doing? The main issue with our holiday is we're in a group. There are 4 Australians, 1 American lady and an Irish lady. I don't like being forced to talk to people at the best of times, but when you're in a train compartment, needing a shower, it's really not the best time. The Australians are in their 70s and have been on trips like this before, where everyone became best of friends. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So, the group that we were with, it got a little bit tense towards the end of the train journey. And then in Beijing, on the way to the Great Wall of China, it all blew up. One of the Australian ladies started shouting at me, and in the end, call me a bitch. She's like, that is not the way to talk to someone. I'm not your child, you're not meant to talk to people like that, I'm meant to go on holiday. I did get an apology out of her, and everything was fine. That wasn't even the worst experience of that day. No, no. We got off the first stop of the Great Wall of China. And my mum was like, hang on now, I've been here before, 1986, as she kept telling everyone the entire trip. And this is not the best place to see the Great Wall of China. In fact, it's the best place is on the itinerary. Why are we not going to the place on the itinerary? And rather than the group agreeing with us and going, actually, why aren't we going to the place on the itinerary? The Irish lady then started shouting at us to get back on the minibus and that we were ruining the entire holiday for them. Like, well, next time maybe you just should go by yourself. When I get back, I'm going to need a really big cuddle. Miss you. So, why didn't I send these letters to my boyfriend? Well, as you can tell, they weren't particularly directed. They were for me so I could talk through my feelings. I didn't want him to know I was unhappy. I knew that it would just make him upset. To know that I was having a horrible time. Well, he knows now. Not about the letters, but I wrote those for me. So, Sophie Cal. She went on other journeys. And this is another one. Come with me. Follow around. Come on, everyone. Make a semicircle around the beautiful bird's eye map. As obviously you can tell, it's Venice. Clearly. Let's face shooting. Lovely. So, this is Venice. Suite Venetienne is a performance that Sophie Cal did. It was one of her earliest performances when she travelled to Venice after hearing at a party that a man that she referred to as Henry B was going there the next day. So she got on a train with a blonde wig, hats, scarves, dark glasses, and a camera. The camera had a squint-eye lens on it, so if you point it in one direction, it had a mirror on it, so it could take a photograph of something in a completely different direction. The perfect tool for a stalker. So, Sophie Cal wandered the streets of Venice, which, as a side note, are actually called Cale, the same as her surname. And she also met up with friends who lived in Venice, and she used their telephones because she wanted to call every hotel in the city to find out where Henry B was staying. On around the 250th go, she received the answer, he's out for the day. She had found him, only 100 metres away from where she was staying. So there she was outside his hotel waiting for him to come. And on Monday, the 18th of February, not last Monday, this is 1980, she found him, and she followed him. The first 6 photographs are the ones that I focused on when I had the opportunity to go to Venice in November and follow Sophie Cal's footsteps. So, there she is, following him around the city. It wasn't until Sunday, 24th of February, again, not tomorrow, it's a bit of a coincidence, isn't it, that she forgot about him. It was Gare de Lyon, 10:08 a.m., Sunday, February 24th, 1980. I see him getting off the train. The woman follows him, both of them carrying cumbersome baggage. They walk slowly with great effort towards the exit. I photograph him one last time as he passes through the station gate. I'll not go farther. He moves away, I lose sight of him. After these last 13 days with him, our story comes to a close. 10:10 a.m. I stopped following Henry B. So, I decided when I went to Venice that I would take the last words of this book to heart. Please follow me. That's exactly what I did. So, this. Campo Santa Margherita, where I followed Sophie Cal, and she followed them, walking arm in arm across the square. Here, this is also Campo Santa Margherita. I followed Sophie Cal, where she saw them walking through the crowd. Here, Ponte San Pantalon, where I followed Sophie Cal, and she sees them atop of the bridge. This is Campiale Mosca, where I followed Sophie Cal, and she saw them disappearing around the corner. and here. Through Salazar de San Pantalon, Rio del Gafaro, Fondamento del Tutini, until Calle de Came, where I followed Sophie Cal, and she saw them disappearing behind the pillars. Well, what I realised as I was following Sophie Cal through the city, that I was also mapping my own journey through Venice. Here. This is the bell tower in Venice, where the little men come out and bang the bell every hour, and the tourists turn around and take photographs. I just remember it mapping my journey through the city. Here we go. This is my discovery. My bench in my oasis of calm in the garden just around the corner from St. Mark's. And I know that hundreds of people will have discovered it before, but for me it felt secret and secure. And right next to it is the Vaporetto that takes you to the Lido, where I got sunburnt because the wind was very deceptive. And here, this is my bed, where I stayed on my gap year alone the first time discovering Venice. So, Sophie Cal, what does it mean to follow a strange artist who follows in the footsteps of strangers? Maybe it means that I'm a little bit crazy too. So, now your journey is coming to an end. But next time you go on a journey, why don't you send me a postcard? I've got one for you. See if I've got my address written in. Come on.
We've got a little break, huh?
Yeah, we've got about an hour now.